Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today, we delving into one of the most fascinating and mysterious topics found within ancient scriptures: the enigmatic red heifer. What is it, and why has it captivated people for millennia? Let's explore together. The story of the red heifer begins in the book of Numbers, chapter 19. It describes a very specific and unusual ritual commanded by God to the Israelites. This wasn't just any ceremony, it was the key to purification, a way to cleanse individuals who had come into contact with death, making them ritually pure again so they could participate in the sacred life of the community and enter the holy sanctuary. Imagine ancient Israel. The tabernacle, and later the temple in Jerusalem, was the center of their spiritual world. It was a place of immense holiness where God's presence was believed to dwell. To enter this sacred space or even participate in its rituals, a person had to be in a state of ritual purity. However, life is fragile, and contact with the deceased, a fundamental part of human experience, would render a person ritually impure. This impurity wasn't about being sinful or dirty. It was a spiritual state that separated them from the holiness of the sanctuary. This created a significant challenge. How could a community constantly dealing with mortality maintain its connection to the divine? This is where the red heifer comes in. The ritual described in Numbers 19 was the unique, divinely prescribed solution. The law required a very specific animal, a young female cow that was completely red without a single hair of another color. It also had to be without blemish, meaning it had no physical defects, and it must have never been yoked, meaning it had never been used for any kind of labor. Finding such an animal was, and still is, exceptionally rare. Think about it, the odds of a cow being born perfectly red without even one white or black hair are astronomical. This rarity immediately marked the ritual as something extraordinary and set apart. Once this rare heifer was found, it was taken outside the camp, a place ritually separate from the community's living space. There, in the presence of the priest, it was sacrificed. Its blood was then sprinkled 7 times in the direction of the front of the tabernacle, symbolizing the atonement and cleansing power of the sacrifice being directed toward the heart of the nation as worship. The entire heifer's skin, flesh, blood, and even its dung was then burned completely on a pyre. But the ritual didn't end there. As the heifer burned, 3 specific items were added to the fire: a piece of cedar wood, a branch of hyssop, and a scarlet-dyed thread or wool. Each of these items carried deep symbolic meaning. Cedar wood was known for its durability and resistance to decay, symbolizing permanence and incorruptibility. Hyssop was a common plant used in purification rituals, often associated with cleansing and healing. The scarlet thread represented the blood and life, but also sin and impurity that needed to be cleansed. Together, their ashes mingled with those of the red heifer, creating a powerful mixture. The resulting ashes were then collected and stored in a clean place outside the camp. These weren't just ordinary ashes. They were the essential ingredient for creating the water of purification. Whenever someone became ritually impure from contact with a dead body, a small amount of these ashes would be mixed with fresh, living water from a spring or river. On the third and seventh days after the contact, this water was sprinkled on the person and their belongings using a hyssop branch. After this 7-day process was complete, the person was considered ritually clean again. They could rejoin the community in full and re-enter the sacred spaces. This ritual is profound because it addresses the ultimate human reality, mortality, death. In this ancient worldview represented the antithesis of God's life-giving holiness. The red heifer ritual provided a bridge, a way for people to navigate the reality of death while remaining connected to the source of life. The priest who performed the sacrifice and the person who gathered the ashes actually became temporarily impure themselves. Highlighting the paradoxical nature of the ceremony, purity was achieved through a process that involved impurity. It was a powerful lesson in humility and the mysterious ways of God. For centuries, this ritual was a vital part of the religious life of Israel, especially during the eras of the First and Second Temples in Jerusalem. Historical sources, like the Mishnah, a collection of Jewish oral traditions, state that only 9 red heifers were prepared from the time of Moses until the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 AD. The scarcity of these perfect animals made each ceremony a momentous event for the entire nation. With the destruction of the temple, the sacrificial system, including the red heifer ritual, came to a halt. Without a temple, the primary need for this specific type of purification for temple service ceased. The ashes from the last heifer were eventually used up or lost, and for nearly 2,000 years the ritual has existed only in scripture and memory. However, the story of the red heifer doesn't end in antiquity. In recent times, there has been a resurgence of interest in this ancient commandment, particularly among groups dedicated to the idea of rebuilding a third temple in Jerusalem. For them, the red heifer is not just a historical curiosity, it is a prerequisite. According to their interpretation of Jewish law, a new red heifer must be sacrificed and its ashes used to purify the priests and the temple site before any new temple services can be reinstated. This belief has led to active efforts to find or even breed a qualifying red heifer. Organizations in Israel, often in partnership with Christian groups in places like the United States, have been using modern agricultural science, including genetics and selective breeding, to try and produce a calf that meets the stringent biblical requirements. In recent years, a few calves have been born that seem to be contenders, generating immense excitement and media attention. Each time, experts meticulously examine the animal, checking for any non-red hairs or other disqualifying blemishes. In 2022, 5 red heifers were famously flown from Texas to Israel for this very purpose. This modern-day search adds a fascinating layer to the story. It connects an ancient religious law to contemporary geopolitical geopolitics, science, and eschatology, the study of end times. For many Jews and Christians, the appearance of a qualified red heifer is seen as a major sign, a potential harbinger of prophesied events. It represents a tangible step toward what they see as a biblically foretold future. Of course, this quest is also a source of significant controversy and debate, both within and outside of religious circles. For many, the idea of rebuilding a temple and resuming animal sacrifices is a complex issue. For others, particularly in the context of the modern Middle East, such efforts are seen as highly provocative. Regardless of one's personal beliefs, the red heifer remains a powerful symbol. It's a story about life and death, purity and impurity, and the human quest for connection with the divine. It represents a bridge between the physical and the spiritual, the ancient and the modern. It's a testament to how an ancient text can continue to inspire, challenge, and shape the actions of people thousands of years later. From a mysterious law in the Book of Numbers to a modern-day agricultural and theological quest, the journey of the red heifer is far from over. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive today. It's a complex topic with a rich history and a very active present. What are your thoughts on the red heifer? Let me know in the comments below. If you found this video interesting and learned something new, please give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next exploration into fascinating stories from history and scripture. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.